I'll be back.
Okay, everybody, welcome to first class of world religions. So good that you are here with us today. So this is first of two classes as our introduction to world religions. And this is going to be kind of the preamble because next year we do the deep dive starting in November. And this is a class series that has been asked for a long time here at Magnolia UCC. Bernie Brucey, I swear, every year he says to me, Marcy, can we please have a class on world religions? And I always say, I'm not competent to teach this, Bernie, but I'll keep looking. I'll keep looking, Bernie. And then, when we did our class most recently on Jonah, and we were talking about Christian nationalism and how one of the most effective ways we can counter Christian nationalism in this country is really to foster a learning culture about different religions and an ecumenical appreciation of different religions and an interreligious dialogue of respect. I again came back to this, and at about that time, I also started to hear about another UCC church that was having a class on world religions, and they were just raving about their instructor. And so I reached out to Sharon Miller, who graciously agreed to come and teach that course for us today. So again, first of two classes, we're going to do it today, and then we'll have another class next Tuesday, same time. And then we are going to revisit it all we'll start the deep dive the first week in November. So I'm going to turn it over to Sharon to kick us off then. And thank you so much, Sharon, for being here to do this.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you all for coming today. It's a real honor to I wish I could meet you in person. I've thoroughly enjoyed teaching the class at Monroe Congregational Church here in Monroe. And it's a total surprise to be invited by Marcy to teach this class. World religions, I kind of grew up in world religions. My parents were missionaries in India and then in Bangladesh. We got kicked out of India and moved to Bangladesh. And then we were in the Philippines for a while, and then back in Bangladesh. And then I was in boarding school in Pakistan. So, and we used to go for vacation to Afghanistan. So, drop me off in any place over in that part of the world, and it was kind of home. So I grew up surrounded by Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, all different faiths, and felt quite at home with that. And later on, I got my Master of Divinity degree, and then I got a Ph.D. in sociology of religion. So, and taught, that was my academic career, and research, and then retired and moved out here. So this is my love, teaching. So I'm very happy to be here and happy to share with all of you. As Marcy said, this is kind of a parenthesis before we really dive into the meat of this course, which is exploring some of the faiths. And the object in the fall, when we really dive into the world religions, is to explore what our neighbors believe, some of the commonalities that our faiths have, and what we can learn from our neighbors and their faiths to enrich our own faith, to find out, what are the things that are similar. And you'll be surprised when we look at Buddhism, when we look at Islam, when we look at Hinduism, there are things that we can learn that will enrich our own faith. and will make us question our own faith. And it's an interesting stretch when we learn from other people's faiths. And so it not only broadens our world, it deepens our own faith. So I look forward to the fall classes. But let's begin today by asking, first of all, what is religion? So let's begin with the first slide. Just a second. Marcy has to cue me up. Okay. What is religion? And, this seems like such a simple question. What is religion? It's kind of like asking the question, what is faith? And is there any way I can have my face in the corner, Marcy, rather than yours? There. Okay. Okay. So what is religion? And I was looking up in the dictionary definition of religion, and it was kind of funny because every definition of religion included the word religion. I mean, that's really not very helpful. And trying to define the word religion is a little like trying to define the word air. If you don't have it, but how do you define the word religion? It seems like an easy question, but it's harder than you think. Really, a better question to ask. Okay, this is not advancing, Marcy. I'm trying to advance to the next slide. I'm pushing the down arrow.
Let's try.
Should I use the mouse? Okay.
There you go.
Nope, that's
too far.
Oh, no. Okay, this is the second one. Okay. Before we dive into religion, one of the things that people get, not get mixed up with, but they go immediately from religion to spirituality. So I wanted to, first of all, tease apart those two, and let's not conflate religion with spirituality. Often when you ask people, what religion are you? And they say, oh, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. And people today are much more careful about differentiating between those two. In generations before, I think that people, the idea of being spiritual but not religious, that would have been a foreign concept. They would have been much more ready to say, oh, I belong to the Methodist Church, I belong to this faith or that faith. Nowadays, people are much more likely to say, I'm spiritual but not religious. So what's the difference between the two? I think that one way of recognizing the difference, or how one informs the other, is to think of religion as the glasses through which we experience spirituality. If I am Hindu, I might experience spirituality. Excuse me, I got to get the dog off my lap. If I'm Hindu, I might experience spirituality as, I might pray to Krishna or to Vishnu. I might light a candle in front of Krishna. I might think of Krishna or Vishnu. I would have a very different spiritual experience than I would if I was Christian and I'm saying a Hail, if I'm Catholic, and I'm saying a Hail Mary, or I have an image of Mary or an image of one of the saints, or so it's like in my head, if I'm Catholic, in my head, I've been bathed in the images, in the prayers, in the music of the Catholic Church. So the Catholic Church has embedded me. It's in my DNA, if you will. So spirituality I will experience through the DNA of the Catholic Church. If I'm Hindu, my spirituality will be embedded with the DNA of my Hindu experience. Does that make any sense? I want to welcome you to respond to me. I don't, you don't have to be a silent audience there, mute the whole time. I welcome your responses if you have questions or if this doesn't make sense to you as I'm talking. So religion informs the way we experience spirituality, but they are two very different things. And you'll understand a bit more of this as we go along. So a better question, okay, and here I'm trying to advance another slide. Okay, a better question to ask than what is religion is what is the purpose does religion serve? What purpose does religion serve? And I want you to think about this for a moment, and we're going to have breakout groups. And I want you to think about this and here I want you to think about religion, not spirituality. So put up that barrier and confine yourself to religion, not spirituality, okay? And think about religion, both from a society, what purpose does religion serve our society, our country, our society, our culture? What does religion serve? And also perhaps yourself personally. Religion, not spirituality. What purpose does religion serve? So Marcy's going to break you up into groups, and you'll have about 7 minutes, and then we'll come back, and I'd like to hear back from each of you, or from each group. Okay, Marcy, take it away. What purpose does religion serve?
Okay, the rooms are all open. Sharon, I had to put you in a room, just ignore it.
Okay.
Okay.
So as you all come back, I'd love to hear from some of you. What purpose does religion serve? Anybody who
In
would
our
like to?
breakout room, one of the things we talked about was it was structure, it was glue, it was a minimum moral agreement.
All right, that covered a lot of bases.
A platform, basically, that we could all stand on, but look at with a different point of view.
Nance had a good word too, was a moral footprint. I like that one.
Moral footprint.
And I also think it's community. It's about building a community of people and that have common purpose.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about how it provides a historical and cultural background
Okay.
and kind of a sense of identity.
Okay. Well, you guys have taken some of my notes
That's
and you've
true.
it sounds like you've already seen some of what I'm going to teach.
And one word that did not come up during our group, but it's something that Marcy's been talking a lot about lately, is church can, for us, it gives people a sense of belonging.
Belonging, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. Yeah, you covered a lot of bases. Yes. Good. Okay, well, let's jump in. Marcy, she has to keep running back and forth across the hall. Okay. How to get me back onto the screen. This is the first time we're doing this, so we'll get it figured out. Okay.
And then
Oops. Okay, advance. Advance on.
try the.
Okay. So you're absolutely right. One of the things that religion does is it binds communities together. Okay, here's, okay, I'm trying to put my picture up here and I don't, there, okay. Religion binds communities together. There's a reason why, I mean, the Amish, they don't have telephones, they don't have internet, they don't have televisions, internet, telephones.
Where do I sign up?
Yeah, exactly. They marry within their own communities. They have their own schools. It binds them together. We look at that as, obviously there's downsides to that. One of the things that creates, it creates a very tight community. It means that not many people leave because where are you going to go? So a community like this is what we call a closed community. It's a way of keeping people in. And a lot of conservative religious communities do this. Conservative religious communities do this. Orthodox Jewish communities are the same way. If you have a minority religious community that's a minority and they're conservative, they tend to have very strong strictures. And one of the purposes is to be confined. And so you minimize contact with the outside world, and it's one way of keeping people in and minimizing their exposure. And, it keeps perpetuating your community so people don't leave. And, the Amish, they're hardworking, good people. It's hard to say anything bad about them. Okay, next slide. It binds people together. It creates an us. There's a reason why they say the family that prays together stays together. The family, it's simplistic, but it's true to a degree. The family that preserves holy days, the family that carries out rituals and worship together, those same traditions are more likely to get passed along to their children, to their children's children. You can see this in families where traditions get passed down through generations. They might get weakened as generations go by, but they are important. So it creates an us. But there's a downside. If there's an us, there's a them. Religion also creates a them. It defines the saved and the lost. This is a picture from North Ireland, where for 30 years there was a war going on between the Protestants and the Catholics. Over 3,500 people were killed between the Protestants and the Catholics. Religion too often creates an us and a them. and too often that us and a them becomes deadly. The Crusades were fought across, they started in Europe beginning in the 1000 AD and going for the next 200 years. There were many crusades. There were 8 major crusades, and they were organized, and the purpose was to retake Jerusalem and sometimes Constantinople, what was then Constantinople, but mainly Jerusalem from the Muslims. And you could also get to heaven by joining a crusade. They also killed many Jews. They have become symbols of the alt-right. And here is a symbol of that. So too often, crusades have looked at Jews and Muslims as the other and have used that as a reason to kill. I have gotten into many arguments with non-Christians over whether religion in the end has caused more harm than good in the world. And they have pointed at things such as the Crusades, such as the Holocaust, and they have said religion has caused more death and more harm and more wars than it has more good in the world. And they point to the Crusades and the Holocaust and Northern Ireland as examples of this. And again, on a personal level, it defines who's in and who's out. Here's a picture of my mother on the left, Helen, and her 2 sisters, Elaine and Esther Hart. 3 young women raised in a Methodist home. My grandmother looked forward to 3 weddings. 3 lovely daughters, 3 lovely weddings ahead. Well, it didn't turn out that well. My mother ended up going to a Baptist evangelist revival tent meeting and got saved when she was away at nurses training, and left her Methodist faith and married a Baptist missionary, was disowned by her Methodist parents, and they were not present for her wedding. She actually got married in Mexico, so they obviously were not there, and was disowned for a while by her parents, who were very angry with her for that. And so she was out of the family for a while. The middle sister towed the line and got married in the Methodist Church. Esther, the youngest on the right, fell in love with her high school sweetheart, who was Catholic, and she ran away from college in order to marry her Catholic boyfriend. And they got married in Detroit and was disowned by the family until the first grandchild came along and they were allowed to come home. So it can split apart, religion can split apart a family because of who they marry. It can happen in a family. But religion can also change over time. This is from a gay pride march in Chicago. Over our lifetime, we have seen a sea of change over the acceptance of gays and lesbians. It wasn't that long ago that gays and lesbians were not accepted in Christian churches or in the different Jewish denominations. And now they are in most Jewish denominations. they do accept gay and lesbians, even for ordination as rabbis. It's only the most conservative denominations that do not accept gays and lesbians in the Jewish tradition. So we have seen tremendous changes over time. So change is possible within religions. Religion also dictates behavioral norms. Look at some of these. There are religions that dictate each one of these behavioral norms. So let's do something a little fun. And I'd like you to unmute yourself and take a guess at what religion dictates different ones of these. Can I play sports on Sunday? Who would say that what religion would say, no, I cannot play sports on Sunday?
Methodist?
No,
But-
it's,
I think Methodists would allow that.
sorry, not when I was a child.
Not when you were a child. Okay.
Tonga.
What?
Tonga.
Okay.
The National Church of Tonga basically shuts down everything, including the national airlines, on
Okay.
Sundays. Only thing you do on
Okay.
Sunday is go to church.
Mhm.
Go to church. Okay. Can I go for a hike on Saturday? Who would say no to that?
Jewish faith.
Jewish, exactly.
And also
Seventh-day Adventists, there's
Seventh-day Adventists, that's what
Seventh-day
saying.
Adventists.
Yeah.
Can I eat a cheeseburger?
Jewish.
No. Jewish.
Jewish, yeah.
Judaism.
Am I allowed to vote?
Oh, let me back up on the cheeseburger. Isn't that true of Hindu also on the not eating
Yes.
meat?
You're right. You're right.
Yep.
the Jewish religion, you can't combine certain things together. You have to
Yeah.
have the
Dairy and meat, yeah, you can't.
here and the meat over there.
Am I allowed to vote?
Plymouth Brethren.
Jehovah's Witnesses
Oh.
and Amish as well.
Wow.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So each one of these is a stricture. Okay. Here's another fun one. What purpose do kosher rules serve? In the Jewish tradition, there are 615 laws in the Talmud. 615, mark you, that Orthodox Jews must obey.
Wow.
And Orthodox Jews will memorize all 615 laws and they will keep them. 615. And here are kosher laws. And this is just a summary of what are the meat laws or fish that they can have or not have. Now, who knew that the front half of a cow is kosher and the back half of the cow is not? This is
When I was in college, I babysat for my religion professor who was an Orthodox Jewish man and his wife, obviously. And so I would babysit for their children, and I had to be careful to keep kosher. And I was always so grateful that the children were old enough to know, and so I didn't have to remember everything. The kids knew, so I didn't have to worry about it.
Yep. Yep. So the front half of a cow is kosher, but the back half is not.
Why?
I have no idea.
What do they do with the back half then?
But remember what I said about the Amish. The same thing would be true in an Orthodox home. How difficult would it be if you wanted to date somebody who did not keep kosher?
Yeah.
Could you go out to McDonald's? Could you go out to Red Robin on a date? Of course not. Could you take somebody out? Could you go to somebody's home for dinner if they're not if they don't keep kosher? No. So you are pretty much restricted to eat only in another Orthodox home. So your social life is going to be restricted to other people who are Orthodox. So if your social life is restricted to other Orthodox, you're pretty much going to stay within the Orthodox family. And that's pretty much going to guarantee that you're not going to stray from the Orthodox faith. So again, it's a way to ensure that you don't stray away from this faith. And it's a way to keep the Orthodox together and keep people from leaving this faith. So again, that's one of the purposes of having the 615 laws. It keeps the family together. It keeps the religious family together. So religion structures society. Here is a photo that, it breaks my heart. Breaks my heart. Women in Kabul, Afghanistan. And one of the reasons it breaks my heart is, as a teenager, I went to Kabul on a couple of occasions, and it was not like this. Back in the 70s, before the Taliban, women were allowed to go to school. In Kabul was very much a metropolitan area where women did not wear coverings such as this. Women wore jeans with long tops. They were dressed modestly. Women did not wear head coverings. Women were allowed to work. But times changed. The Taliban came in, conservative Islam came in, and they rewrote the laws. They rewrote the laws of the country, and they instituted Sharia law, conservative Islamic law, and it restructured society. And it said what women could or could not do. And it limited women to the home, and it made women cover up. And this is the result. This is what we have today. And this is a picture from Israel. Israel today is largely, a lot of the public life in Israel is controlled by the Orthodox coalition. Orthodox men, the ultra-Orthodox men, Jewish men, have been exempt from the military draft. Most of them study at the yeshivas until the age of 26, which is the age when they are no longer drafted. And so they study until they're age 26 when they are exempt from the draft. As of this year, they are no longer exempt. And so studying in a yeshiva will no longer exempt them from the draft. And so they are being drafted. And they are obviously not happy about that, which this protest shows. They also are being, the Orthodox coalition, which is part of the government, has a huge hold on the government and informs a lot of, like buses don't run on the Sabbath. A lot of the laws of the country are informed by the Orthodox coalition, even though most of the country is not Orthodox, but it structures society. So just briefly, I want to talk about a definition of the sacred and profane, because religion is really informs what we consider sacred. And sacred has to do with the supernatural, not necessarily the divine, but well, supernatural, divine, awe-inspiring. It's something that is outside ourselves, significant aspects of our existence. It's that sense that you have when you are standing on the edge of a cliff and you get this fabulous sense of the world is staring into space, and it is awe-inspiring. That there is a force beyond yourself. Those pictures from space that were sent back, the supernatural, it's something beyond ourselves. It includes religious beliefs, it includes rights and duties, religious treatment, all of those things we consider the sacred. We sometimes can't put our finger on it, but we know it when we see it. But it also includes, very specific rights and duties. And the profane is everything that is not sacred, you could say, is profane. So profane does not mean, like we think of profanity as like swearing, but really profane means anything that's not sacred is profane. So the absence of sacred would be profane. So profane is everyday life. And just an example, we had an interesting discussion at our church. Think of communion bread. Communion bread, we are not Catholics. We don't believe that communion bread turns into the actual body and blood of Jesus. But there is something that happens when the minister, when we are given that bread and the person says, this is the blood or this is the bread of Christ given to you. That is a special moment. It's a special moment. How do you define that moment? I'm not really sure, but it's a special moment. It's not like sitting down at the table and somebody just passes you the bread and you slather on butter and jam. It's different than that. That would be profane. It's not, it's just an everyday life experience. There's something special about it when somebody hands you that bread and says, this is the body of Christ broken for you. There's something sacred about it. Now, at our church, there's always leftover bread because we don't use it all. So one of the women takes the leftover bread, she takes it home, and she makes bread pudding out of it. She brings it back the following week, and she brings the bread pudding. And we love her bread pudding. And the bread pudding then becomes just ordinary bread pudding. So it would be what we would classify as profane. It's just bread pudding, and I love her bread pudding. But the week before, when it was, this is my body broken for you, it's sacred. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So religion is about the sacred, sometimes in a way we can't make sense of, but there's something there. There's something there. Sometimes we can name it, sometimes we can't. Sometimes there are duties, there are rites that are, the liturgy. Sometimes we can put our name on it. We can name it. Sometimes we can't, but there's something there. But, we make that assumption that religion has a God, gods, deity, a higher power, but it doesn't always. And that's people are surprised by that. Religion does not always have a God or gods or a higher power. Religion doesn't always provide an answer to life's mysteries. Sometimes it does. but not all of the mysteries. How often are we still left with no answer to life mysteries? Why is there suffering if God loves us and God is all powerful? God can do anything. Why did my son die in an auto accident? There's no answer. So religion provides a lot of answers to us, but it does not answer all of life's mysteries. So in the fall, we're going to be digging more into these questions, and we're going to be looking deeper into this. But religion, it doesn't always have a God. It doesn't always answer our mysteries, but it will provide more of these. So after all of this, let's pull it back together again and look at a simple definition of religion. And some of you already gave this definition when you gave your answers earlier. It's a unified system. It makes some sense. It's unified. It's a unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things. There's a good, simple definition of religion. A unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things. Doesn't mention God, doesn't mention answering all of life's mysteries. A unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things. So next week, we'll be talking about the differences between religions, how religions end up kind of exploding into denominations, how denominations end up dividing into sects and cults. And then in the fall, we'll dive into Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Chinese folk religions, Sikhs, Jains, Baha'is, and we'll see where we go. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Any questions, comments from folks?
Any questions, comments?
What do I want to say?
Jump in.
I'm trying, Confucianism,
Yes,
will that be one of those mentions that you will deal with?
yes,
Thank you.
Confucianism, and that's one that does not have a God or a higher power.
Right.
Absolutely. We will talk about that. That's one that we would put under Chinese folk religion.
You talked
Anybody
about
else?
making bread pudding out of the communion bread.
Yeah,
When I was much younger, a friend of mine was in charge of doing the communion, and that's back when we used to have the little cups, and you put them in the tray and you pass the tray around. And
right.
at the end of the Sunday, then she'd go back and pour all those little leftover things into the bowler bag, and then when we went cross country skiing, we had communion wine.
That's good. That's good. Good idea.
Waste not,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm impressed you could ski and drink at the same time.
Pardon?
I'm impressed you could ski and drink at the same
We
time.
never drank that much.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, speaking as somebody who was a teenager growing up skiing, it's possible.
I was at a Baptist church once and they forgot to refrigerate the grape juice and they only had communion once a month.
Oh dear.
And they had the little shot glasses. And so everybody, would take their little shot glasses and drink it at the same time. And they, followed the pastor and did the shot glasses and it had fermented. Well, Baptists don't drink. And the pastor just started choking and coughing, and then everybody started laughing because it had fermented. It was like, yeah, it was very, very funny. So, any questions or comments? Well, it was a lot. It was a lot to cover today.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, maybe I missed this. So are you teaching, are you a professor somewhere now? What is
I was a professor. I've retired.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I taught sociology, different sociology course, sociology, religion, social psychology, and then I was doing research for a number of years. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. But teaching is my first love.
Oh, that's great.
You've actually had the experience of living where these places are, all these different religions.
I have, yeah.
That's a big advantage, I would think, to just learning and going to a class on it.
Well, and in the fall, I mean, one of the things that I so enjoyed in teaching the class at my church was, when I taught Buddhism, I brought in all of my little Buddhas, and when I taught Hinduism, I have, Krishna and Vishnu, and I have all these Chotsky things that I could bring in, but I could still bring them in and show them. But yeah, it's not the same on Zoom, but
they're not tchotchkes, they're sacred. Come on now.
That's true. That's true. My Baptist mother would be appalled, but anyway, she's no longer with us, so God rest her soul. So anyway, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you.
everyone. We'll see you next Tuesday at 1:00. Same Zoom link.
Got it.
Okay.
Super. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.